Hello, everyone. I am here for a very, very quick after work, pre nighttime trip to the park stream. I don't intend for this to be a long one. This is not going to be a panel. I just felt compelled to come on and say something about this today. This is one of those streams that I did not get up in the morning and say, okay, I'm going to do a stream today. But throughout the course of the day, my wheels, that was one of the ads from the stream. I like to have the stream on and then I like to see YouTube at the same time. But as I went throughout my day, my wheels started turning, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna do something quick on this. And actually, I watched something last night that also inspired me to do something on this. So this stream is called Cleopatra and the Accurate Portrayal of History. This channel now is a bit of a think tank, and I do a lot of thought pieces now. And I have read some excerpts from Mother Eva Doyle's Eye on History. I think some people have enjoyed that. I have another one queued up discussing a gentleman named Arthur Schomburg, who I'd never heard of up until the last 10 years. And I'm going to upload that, and you'll learn about, if you watch that, you can learn about who he is as well. But he was basically a Black historian, a very, very thorough Black historian. And what I'm starting to see is that history matters, telling complete history matters, and those individuals who control the pen of history, they have a lot of power. And so the stories that are told, the way those stories are told, the way the people in those stories are portrayed, that matters. That's very, very significant. And that's something that Mother Eva Doyle wrote in this book, and that's that history matters. Much of it is buried, which is the case for the descendants of slaves in the United States. And your history matters. Our history matters. All history matters. And that's what the sum total of all of this, Jada Pinkett's documentary, this Cleopatra thing, the backlash towards the documentary, that's what prompted this stream. So I'm going to play my intro. I think I'll go with the jazz intro because that one's in the description box for attribution. And then I'm going to jump in and hopefully finish up because there are several hours of daylight left and it's a beautiful day out and I want to go out for a walk. Please let me know what you think in the comments section below. Please shout yourselves out. Have you seen the Cleopatra documentary on Netflix? I'm going to be honest, a quick disclaimer. I have not watched it. I created a video on my entertainment and media channel yesterday, capturing the responses to it and why those responses have been so visceral. But if you've watched it, let me know what you think about it there in the chat. But the principle behind the backlash to it, I'm interested in that. That's compelling and fascinating to me. So if you want to make a donation to the channel, my Cash App and PayPal are here. If you want to leave a super chat during this, you're welcome to do that too. And you can leave a super thanks if you're watching this on the playback. All right, I'm going to play some jazz music and then I will jump in on the other side. J3. Is that a galaxy there? He says the series isn't too bad, Dr. Dunbar. Okay, well that's encouraging. That's encouraging because it's on some channels, as I'll describe, and some of you have seen it. It's getting slammed. All right, I'll see you on the other side of the intro. J3, thank you for lending that perspective. All right, everyone. Happy hump day. I hope your weeks are going well. Mine is busy. All of mine are busy. Always lots and lots to do and lots to think about. Alicia says, well, J3, and J3, thank you for being here. I'm not familiar with your name, but thank you for being here. He says also, seemed they took a few liberties on the history, but overall not as bad as they say. And Alicia says, Alicia, thank you for being here. She says, haven't seen it yet, but the conversation about ancient races is tired. The concept of race, quote unquote, we use today, um, the concepts of race that we use today weren't used in Cleopatra's era. That's a good point, and it's interesting that you should say that. I'm going to get to that, or I've linked a video in the description box that gets to that from an Egyptian woman. First of all, everyone, well, rest in power, Tina Turner, the queen of rock and roll. I saw on my smartphone that she passed away at 83 years of age. So the great Tina Turner is no longer with us. So I don't know if any of you knew that, but she has transitioned on to what's the word? It's not eldership. It's she's become an ancestor. I think that's the proper term. I'm thinking about things my brother would say. Anyway, and I thought about Tina Turner as I was starting this one because her history, we know what was portrayed in the movie What's Love Got to Do with It regarding Ike. And I think I probably need to be careful talking about this. But there were murmurings after What's Love Got to Do with It was released that wasn't 100% accurate and that there was more to that story than what was shared in the movie. But if there's anything you get from this stream, and all of my subs are intelligent people, and those of you in the chat and those of you who are watching now, you're all intelligent people. You know that the storyteller has a lot of power, and whoever holds the pen for history or in the context of history has a lot of power because people are going to read that history, they're going to learn that history, and for them, unless someone comes and says, okay, that's not exactly how it happened, those people are going to take that history, they're going to internalize it, and that's going to become the reality going forward. So yesterday, I recorded a video on my entertainment and media channel. I have several channels. This is just one, and I was thinking earlier that Black YouTube is just a small part of the entire YouTube galaxy. There's a sports section. There's a an entertainment section that just talks about movies. There are science channels. There are hair channels. There are makeup channels. Pretty much anything you want is on this platform. But I created a video um, on this Cleopatra Netflix special documentary promoted by Jada Pinkett-Smith. It was a bit of a humorous video, and I created that, and it's getting some traction. It's getting some viewership. A gentleman by the name of T. Riddler. He doesn't. I recognize the picture, but he hasn't named himself that over there. I'm assuming it's the same person, but he made the point underneath the video that at one point Egyptians did not look Arabic like they do now. They looked more, I guess his point was they looked more like the Southern Africans from the Congo and the Ivory Coast and South Africa. They were more brown skinned and more melanated, and they did not resemble Egyptians as they look today. So I think his point was that it's not so bad that the Cleopatra character was portrayed the way she was in this Netflix special. Um, and then later on in the night, as I was winding things down, I went over to that channel, my entertainment and media channel, and the YouTube algorithm says, "Here, you made this video about that. Maybe you want to watch this one as well." So there was a woman, an Egyptian woman named Nora, who is well, she's Egyptian, and she made a fiery video about why that documentary was offensive, and that Cleopatra was one of her heroes, and or is one of her heroes, and someone who she looks up to. And then she talked about at the end what Egyptians actually look like versus the way the character was portrayed in this most recent documentary. And she just didn't take issue with this portrayal of Cleopatra. She also took issue with Gal Gadot. Is it Gal Gadot or Gal Gadot? Wonder Woman from the Justice League. Apparently, Gal Gadot portrayed her as well. So she took issue with Gal Gadot, who is, I believe, is Israeli. She took issue with her portraying her. So the video was basically about Cleopatra didn't look like Gal Gadot. Cleopatra didn't look like this woman in the Jada Pinkett Netflix documentary. She looks more like she looked more like a modern day Egyptian. We are a mocha colored people. I think she described them that way. And she also took issue with everybody being lumped into a brown category. Okay. And she also talked about how um, race is not seen the same way in Egypt. So I thought it was a very interesting video because it talked about the documentary from their perspective. And it's always interesting to hear. We're used to hearing about things a certain way in the United States, but it's always interesting to hear people from other countries and from other walks of life talk about these things and how they see things. So that video is below in the description box as well. I would play it, but like a lot of content creators, I don't want a strike and I don't want this video taken down, and I want it to be monetized. What was interesting about what she said in the opening of the video, of her video, Nora, was that she said Cleopatra was someone she looked up to and someone she modeled herself after. And that gets back to why it's important to be historically accurate and why history matters and how historical figures are portrayed and memorialized. That's why that matters. That's why that's important, because people are looking at those characters and they're either well, they're modeling themselves after those individuals, okay, and in many ways excuse me, people are basing their entire self-esteems, well, they're partially basing their self-esteems on those historical figures and how those historical figures are depicted. Please smash that like button. And that's arguably why, if we were to talk to Jada Pinkett-Smith and her production team, that's arguably why they quote unquote reimagined. That's a modern term. Art Newstall, thank you for stopping through. I was watching last night until it was my bedtime. I appreciate the shout out when you guys were talking about college degrees in STEM. Maybe we should do something together again sometime soon. But if you talk to Jada and her production team, that probably has something to do with why they quote unquote reimagined Cleopatra in the image that they used for the Netflix documentary, because it would make a certain demographic of people. If you guys heard that, someone's out there revving up their monster car. Hold on a second. This is one of the issues with having your setup right next to the patio. All right. So if you were to talk to Jada, that's probably why they quote unquote reimagined the character. And that's because it would resonate with a certain demographic of people and make them feel better and make them feel good about themselves. But when you reimagine a character, when you take a beloved character, a beloved historical figure, I want to say a character because Cleopatra was a real person. When you take a beloved historical figure like that and you reimagine them, you're gonna you're gonna alienate somebody else and you're gonna piss somebody else off. And that's one of the fascinating things to me about this is that, well, I imagine everyone in Egypt was not that upset over this, but there was a critical mass of people in Egypt who saw that and saw fit to take action to sue Netflix. I believe it was Netflix, and ban the documentary in their country because they felt like this is not who she was. This is not what she should look like. That is not us. That is not a reflection of us. So I thought that was fascinating that an entire country would do that. But I thought it was a good thing because they took a stand against that that type of thing, and they said no, it's not okay for you to put out this type of media. It's not okay for you to put out this type of messaging. I thought that was good. Much the same way we've seen pushback on Anheuser-Busch for the Bud Light thing. But this reminded me of something else. I don't want to go too long with this. This, yeah, there he is. There he is. There's T Riddler right there. T Riddler uh, made the comment under my video about Jada Pinkett-Smith uh, blaming the performance or um, linking or ascribing the performance of her documentary to white supremacy. So T Riddler, thank you for that comment underneath that video, because I think that gets to the crux of the matter. And T Riddler, you just disrupted my thought process by coming in here. I know. So where else have we seen this in pop culture and in media? In my video, I pointed out that we see this every year. We see this every year. Now, T Riddler, I left a video in the description box below by an Egyptian woman, and she opens the video by saying that in terms of history and time, Cleopatra would have looked like the modern Egyptians. I don't know if that's true, but she was clear. She was sure to say that at the beginning of her video. We see this every year. We see this every year. Where do we see this? And this occurred to me when I was making my video. We see this every Easter because what do they roll out? They roll out the Ten Commandments. And as I was watching the Ten Commandments this year, I looked at this for probably the first time in my life. I looked at Charlton Heston and Yul Brynner, and I said, did Moses look like that? And did Ramses? Is it Ramses the third? Ramses the second? I said, did Moses look like that? And did Ramses look like that? Charlton Heston is clearly of European descent. I don't know. I think Yul Brynner, he might be Jewish. He might have been Jewish. But this movie is rolled out in front of us every year, and it's been rolled out every year since I've been a child. And these people clearly do not look Egyptian. So this is something that's been going on for years. And one of the issues with the Cleopatra character, the Cleopatra figure, is Elizabeth Taylor played her back in the day. Elizabeth Taylor, that was one of Michael Jackson's close friends. Yep, Art Newstall, Liz Taylor. I also have this one. This is Charlton Heston, Yul Brynner, and whoever played Ramses' father from the Ten Commandments. Every year, this is rolled out for us to watch. And this year, I looked at this and I said, okay, is that what Moses looked like? Is that what Ramses looked like? And is that what Ramses' father looked like? Assuming the biblical story is accurate and it's true. Is this really what those people look like? The same is true for, I can't think of her name in the story, but Ramses' wife. She clearly looks European. So this has been happening for a while. This has been happening for a while. Those of you who were of age in the 90s and saw Spike Lee's Malcolm X, you know that there was that iconic scene where Malcolm converted to Islam while in prison, and he confronted the clergyman in the prison with the passage from the Bible that talked about uh, um, what Jesus looked like. Most of us grew up in churches where Jesus had long, flowing blonde hair and blue eyes and a blonde beard, and he was pale white. And I think most of our slave forefathers, that was the Jesus that they worshipped. Well, in that iconic scene from Malcolm X, Malcolm stands up to the the prison priest and says no, his skin was bronze colored and he had hair the texture of sheep's wool. So imaging matters, uh, messaging matters, and these arguments over what these historical figures look like and what they actually, how they actually, what their appearances actually were, what their races actually were. This has been going on for a while. This has been going on for years. Art Newstall says, "Don't forget Liz Taylor with the blue eyes." LOL. Alicia says, "Yul Brynner was Russian, I believe." Yeah, he was in really good shape. He was in really good shape, but he did not look Egyptian. Neither did Charlton Heston. Art Newstall says the vegan holy man. Art Newstall, who are you referring to there? The vegan holy man. Is that Charlton Heston? So I think, and I'm not going to go much further than this, but I think it's important to give full and accurate accounts of history. I mean, say what, per, but there's power in portraying Jesus as a white man with a blonde beard and blue eyes and long flowing blonde hair. There's power in um, Elizabeth Taylor being Elizabeth Taylor portraying Cleopatra, and there's power in how you portray characters, and there's power in the amount of story that you tell. If you just tell this little bit, people are just going to know this little bit. If you tell both sides of it, the entire part of it, then people will have a nice full account of what happened. Personally, when I was giving commentary on all this dating stuff, I'm not doing a lot of that anymore. Someone did tap me on the shoulder because I did tell the story of my mother going to college looking for a husband. I did tell that. And then someone tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Dr. Dunbar, you didn't share," and I think I probably did share this, but you didn't share that your parents also got divorced. Okay. And that's actually a good point because while my mom did go looking for a husband, that was not necessarily a guarantee that they would live happily ever after. And they didn't. So that's important to know. I already talked about Ike and Tina. Much of the narrative, especially after what's love got to do with it was released, was it demonized Ike. But there are other accounts, and Ike, I think, came out, and maybe those around him came out and tried to present other parts of that story. But if all you heard was Tina's account of it, then yeah, the guy was a monster, which is how Lawrence Fishburne portrayed him in that movie. Dr. Martin Luther King. Most of my childhood, Dr. Martin Luther King was portrayed in the context of his "I Have a Dream" speech and um, his embracing nonviolence, similar to Mahatma Gandhi and the March on Washington and the Montgomery bus boycott and the Edmund Pettus Bridge and Selma, and that's how he was portrayed, the nonviolent Christian Dr. Martin Luther King. Now, years later, we hear that his focus had turned to economics. His focus had turned to economic equality and poor people's rights, and he was criticizing the Vietnam War. And there were also my mentor, who grew up during that era in the South, shared with me that Dr. Martin Luther King had a lot of Black detractors, and there were a lot of Black people who wanted to take his life, just as there was many white people who wanted to take his life. So we only hear growing up, there were only these parts about his life. Okay. In my circle, in my circle growing up, I had never heard of Fred Hampton. Okay, Fred Hampton was never talked about in my circle. Maybe he was talked about in some of yours, but he wasn't talked about much. Um, the civil rights movement. All we ever hear about is the Jim Crow aspect and the Voting Rights Act and the equal housing, the fair housing aspects of it. But we never historically, now we are with the internet, with YouTube and certain channels on YouTube. Now, you hear about all of the other after effects of the civil rights movement and who actually benefited from the civil rights movement beyond Black people. Okay, if no one ever tells you that, you never know. You're none the wiser. That's why it's important to have the entire historical picture and to have it be accurate. I'm going to read some of the comments here. Uh, Art Newstall says, I think you might be joking here. He says, a lot of white men look like that Jesus figure on the beach with sunflower seeds and vegan products. Interesting. He said out here in California. Kareen, this, I don't know. Do you think Jada wants to be a white woman? I have a different view. I think Jada is very anti-Black with this Cleopatra. Interesting. Even though the main character is melanated. T. Riller says, I just read an article that expressed research findings where the marriages that last the longest in the West are typically where both partners have no more than 1 year age difference. Okay, I'm not sure what that has to do with what we're talking about, but thank you. Thank you. And then she says she has this platform to highlight so many African queens that she chooses Cleopatra, who may be Black and was a concubine of Julius Caesar. What happened to the true African queens? You know what, Kareem, speaking of descendants of kings and queens, let's talk about that. That was T. Riddler, you look like a young guy, but I think everyone else in the chat was around in the 90s and was listening to hip hop music. And the hip hop music in that era was very, very conscious. So most I remember a lot of songs talking about us being quote unquote descendants of kings and queens, descendants of kings and queens, descendants of kings and queens. Well, a certain judge who's running for the office of mayor in Memphis, who has been, you know, who makes controversial comments about all kinds of things, he disputed that, and there are a lot of people who dispute the whole concept of we descended from kings and queens. It's meant it's meant for our people to feel better about ourselves, but a lot of nationalities had kings and queens, and not everybody in Africa was a king and a queen. But the sentiment of that is that we all come from greatness. We all come from royalty. Well, some of us do, some of us don't. So history matters. History matters. Art Newstall says X Clan. I don't remember X Clan saying that. They said a whole bunch of different things like Vainglorious. Uh, this is the red, the black, and the green. I had their first record. I had X Clan's first record, but I remember a lot of other MCs and rappers saying that descendants of kings and queens, descendants of kings and queens. That was pretty big. Um, Yeah, yeah, we definitely had kings and queens, but is everybody is everybody a descendant from them, or some of us descendants of their subjects? So that's one of those things that again is meant to build self-esteem and make everyone feel good and make everyone feel whole. But clearly, there are a lot of our people who are not very kingly and queenly. KRS One was that? Did he espouse that? I'm trying to think. I listened to KRS One. I had Edutainment. I had Return of the Boom Bap. His hip hop was very, very conscious, very, very Afrocentric. I don't remember him specifically saying descendants of kings and queens. And that so accuracy. I'm going to end this soon because I want to go outside. Accuracy is huge. We talked about. I show these pictures for those of you who just came in. This is rolled out to us every year. Charlton Heston and Yul Brynner and the Ten Commandments. They show this every year at Easter, and we know that Egyptians, maybe the Israelites, maybe the Hebrews looked like this, but they probably didn't. But we see this every year. No one really complains about it. We see this every year around Easter time. Everyone, before I wrap this up, what's another movie? Might get myself in trouble for this one. What's another movie that recently was slammed due to a lack of accuracy? I point this out in my video on my entertainment and media channel. What's another movie that arguably underperformed and received a lot of blowback because of its lack of accuracy and its perceived bending of the truth? Anybody? And I did go see it. Shango Zulu? No, I'm surprised you guys didn't guess it right. Shango Zulu says Gods of Egypt. I didn't see that. Art News Style says Kings of Egypt. No, I'm surprised no one has guessed it right. T. Riddler says 12 Years a Slave. That's focused on Solomon Northup. Solomon Northup. Kareen says, yes, so many Nubian queens. Also, even if she was going to do Egypt, she could have chosen Queen. And people don't know about her. Yagami says, descendants of kings and queens also seems to serve to detach from the tribe narrative as kings and queens relate to kingdoms and higher degrees of social, political, territorial organization. Art Newstall, I didn't think about that one, but this one, yep, that one got slammed too for its lack of historic accuracy. But this one that T. Riddler just mentioned, T. Riddler got it. This one, The Woman King, Viola Davis's Woman King, and I did go see it. That one got a lot of criticism on all sides. I got criticism from non-black people, and it got criticism from black people too, because of how the Dahomey were portrayed and actually celebrated in that movie. So accuracy matters. Accuracy matters. Giagami says, Amana, Amanirenas was Nubian. She was one of the Kandaki. Okay. It took me a minute to figure out how to pronounce that. So at some point, I will take a look at this. At some point, I will take a look. The reviews I've heard on it have not been positive. They have not been favorable. Of course, you should, if you're that curious about something, you should go watch it yourself. But I think what's at the heart of this, and the fact that uh, people in Egypt would take the stance they took against this, it's accuracy. It's uh, it's whether or not the character is being accurately portrayed, and also what that image means to the people of Egypt. Now, for the thumbnail, did anyone see the thumbnail? Well, you all did see the thumbnail that you're here. Interestingly, um, this is something controversial, and it probably always will be. And I don't know how any of us will ever figure this out. This is something that would, I think this is something my brother, this is a joke, but I think this is something my brother goes to bed thinking about at night. The thumbnail for the stream is the Sphinx, and I'm in the wrong folder. And I used this image as the thumbnail for a reason. I was very deliberate about that. Does anyone know what what's mysterious about the Sphinx? What is so controversial about the Sphinx? What gives people so much heartburn about this great work of art? Giagami says rain, erosion, and the stones. Yeah, so the face. So yeah, so Sig Diggy said it. So you can't really look at the Sphinx and tell what nationality it is because the nose is gone. So let's well, this is one theory here. I'd have to look it up to see if this actually happened, and that's another thing. We are reliant upon the records people keep. If they don't keep adequate records, you're not going to have an an adequate understanding of what really happened. So one theory is that Napoleon, I didn't know it was Napoleon, shot the nose off because he didn't want future generations to know that the Sphinx was actually African. That's one theory of what happened with the Sphinx. That's why I used that thumbnail. Let's see. Corrine says, I don't trust Netflix. Their documentaries are not really that accurate. Always some controversy. Art Newstall said the Sphinx, uh, it was a woman. And then, yeah, Corrine says, apparently because the nose was an African slash black nose. So that's the mystery slash the controversy surrounding the Sphinx. So these images, they matter. Imagine if the nose was there and we could all point to it and say, "Yeah, see, it does look like us. The Sphinx is one of us." So if someone shot it off, that was intentional, and that's why they would have done that. It leaves it ambiguous. Now, I will say one thing about what Karine just said regarding Netflix and who's up there deciding what projects get green lighted and what gets funding and what doesn't. The video from the Egyptian woman, she points that out as well. She really grinds her axe for Netflix and the corporate individuals who greenlighted this project and projects like it because it's causing people to fight and quarrel and bicker over these types of things. So media matters. The imaging they put out, that matters. The messages they put out, those things are calculated, they're thought out, and there are reasons why they put the imaging and the messaging out that they do. And this one is it's no different. Please smash that like button if you haven't. The likes are free and they help with the engagement. Yagami, thank you for the uh, $2 super chat. Any support is very much appreciated. So everyone, I just wanted to do a quick stream on this. I uploaded a pre-record yesterday on my entertainment and media channel. T Riddler was moved enough to leave a comment underneath, and this documentary has generated quite a bit of reaction here online and offline as well. And it got me to thinking about history and the importance of it and the importance of accurately portraying figures and past events and just really telling things how they are and how they were. And that's why I've read passages from Mother Eva Doyle's book Eye on History, because a lot of our history in particular is buried. It's buried, it's hidden, and in many instances it's left ambiguous. And there are certain parts of it that unless you go digging and looking for it, you'll never know. You'll never know. And that's why the social class piece that's talked about a lot in the YouTube streets and in Black YouTube. That's an important piece. That's why I think over on my entertainment and media channel, I just did a revisit of our kind of people inside America's Black upper class. Unless you come from this, you don't know anything about this. This is just one example. That's just one example. But over on my entertainment and media channel, that's the most popular video over there. I've talked about Spider-Man and Batman and uh, Blade and all kinds of things, but people keep going back to that video because it resonates with them, because that's a real dynamic in, well, the United States in general, but particularly in the Black community, social class. But if you don't grow up in that, you just don't know. So there are certain parts of our history that are kind of buried and kept quiet. Okay, I'm going to read these two comments, then I'm going to wrap up. Okay, Sick Diggy says, have you checked out the history of the Nubians by Sudanese historians and archaeologists? He's talking to you, Kareem. Kareem says, yes, apparently more pyramids than Egypt current in our current day. And then he asked the same question. All right, everyone. I've managed to talk for 50 minutes. It is 6:30 here on the East Coast. and I need to go outside and walk around a little bit. So, yeah, if you're watching this in the playback and you've seen the documentary, please let me know what you think. It's caused quite a bit of controversy. I thought it was interesting going back to the video in the description box by the Egyptian woman Nora. She's a younger woman. I thought it was interesting that she not only did not approve of this particular lady playing Cleopatra, but she also took issue with Gal Gadot playing her as well. So both of those extremes were, yeah, no good. So, and at the end, she goes into a distinct discussion of what Egyptians actually look like. So that's in the description box. All right, everyone, I got to wrap up. I'm not going to show my newsletter. I'm a writer. I have a newsletter. The link is in the description box. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you want to donate something to the channel, that information is below in the description box. You can also leave a super thanks if something was said here that moves you. And with that, everyone, I will wrap this up. As always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Always try to do your best. Take care, and I will talk to you the next time. Bye bye.